Well, we don't really talk to
Looky
Clemson
here,
fans.
Clemson
But
fans.
no,
Welcome to
we
Verse Take.
even though
Yep,
Clemson fans are persona non grata.
we're
Just
jumping right
kidding. Just
into
kidding.
South Carolina Clemson rivalry.
It's a regional beef between one of the greatest schools ever
hmm Yeah, yeah.
and
A true academic stalwart.
well, both schools are actually pretty good. I'm
I
just
think,
kidding. I don't know.
yeah, Clemson's probably actually a pretty good school in South Carolina.
So
It's all
they
right.
say,
So they say. Yeah, yeah.
right? But I guess I
Well,
don't.
hey,
Well, I'm just from the same
sh
side of the state as the University of Columbia, so hey,
you come by it honest. Well, should we introduce the show? I think it's we're on first take here. My name's Justin.
my name's James. Gonna go ahead and
He's
get into it.
Yeah, I'm sick, by the way. So just, bear with me here.
Sick,
I might have to blow my nose once or twice. Maybe I'll try and do it off camera.
he's sick like Tony Hawk.
Yeah, yeah, sick with it. Yep. I'm down with the sickness.
And today we are down with Lee Bai.
Be bye.
Li Bai is a kind of an extremely famous Chinese poet, one of the seminal Chinese poets. He's one of the two big ones. There's another one named Du Fu that is
Yeah,
also pretty big.
yeah.
But
I,
Li,
I yeah.
what are you gonna say?
Let's say I remember telling you off camera. I was always pretty partial to Doofus, but Doofu's pretty good too.
I like Du Fu,
Yeah,
um, but Doofus is funny.
yeah.
He's a pretty
He's
funny
just
guy.
Yeah, he just really knows. He just really writes from where it's at, you know?
But Li Bai is like he's a very famous Chinese poet. That's who we're gonna do
hmm
today. I
Yeah.
guess he almost kind of writes in a somewhat of like a romantic sort of style.
Mm.
He kind of inspired a lot of the early modernist poets. Are and also all the way to the Beat generation, and even till today, poets are still finding, the works of Li Bai to be compelling.
Yeah, yeah. He kind of reminds me a bit of how a lot of American writers write haiku,
Hmm.
when they do it and it's not necessarily like about the environment, or about nature,
Right.
but just, because a lot of the translations are like a little bit jilted as well, the languages sometimes, I think.
Hmm.
um, and kind a little bit sparse, but kind of touching more on like emotional subjects, rather than just like, strict. I mean, nature is still a part of it, but it's not like, like the Japanese haiku where it's like strictly about like images and like, using nature. Um, it kind of it's his is a little bit more almost not like quite confessional, but personal.
Right. He almost puts himself in the poetry a lot as almost like a kind of almost like this shamanistic sort of figure, like he sort of learns from like everything around him, whether it's the moon or he sort of, I don't know if it's necessarily learned, but he sort of gains an insight from the moon, from the forest, the mountains, even from the wine he consumes. Li Bai is a big fan of wine, and
hmm
he's one of the that was kind of one of the things that made him stick out during the time he was writing, kind of writing about being drunk or just
Yeah,
even imbibing.
he was
It
also
was
married 4 times.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that
So
kind of rare for the time?
I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know.
mm. So hey, well, he was seen definitely seen as an eccentric. He definitely was an eccentric, and he wrote some pretty good poetry. One
Yeah, yeah,
we've someone that we've covered on the podcast before, Ezra Pound, is kind of given credit for sort of like a pseudo translation of some of his poetry. It's a translation that has been praised for like its sort of its tenacity and its sort of maybe appreciation for a certain spirit of Chinese poetry, but you know, is some of the translations have also been critiqued as well.
yeah. I think he took some creative liberties,
Mm,
um, a little bit, which is
right.
which is kind of fine. But then I think you just have to understand that it's maybe not necessarily uh, direct.
But it's not the worst thing in the world because
Right,
a
right.
lot of Li Bai's poetry itself was recapitulations of like Chinese folk tunes, and a lot of
Mm,
especially some of his earlier stuff was reflections on earlier dynasties, but a lot of his later stuff was sort of reflective of the dynasty that he was in, the Tang dynasty. Yeah,
yeah,
he was a part
yeah.
of the Tang
Julia told me
dynasty,
Tong.
the
I,
Tang
I call it
dynasty.
I call it Tang earlier. She corrected me. My
Oh,
wife is Chinese, by the way. For
yeah.
all of you at home.
So yeah, the Tang dynasty. So yeah, and the dynasty before him, I think, was the Wei. I might be mispronouncing it, but it seems like Wei, Wei.
Yeah, I don't. I
Yeah.
think you might be right there.
Okay. Yeah. So the
I don't know that much about Chinese, or cult history, so I can't pretend.
had Julia heard of Li Bai?
Yeah, her dad had too.
Mm.
Yeah, I asked him about him. So, um, yeah, her grandfather, or yeah, her grandfather, her mother's father was a professor of classic literature.
Okay.
So he told me a little bit about that.
All right. Well, hey. Well.
Yeah,
So yeah, the poetry of Li Bai is
yeah.
he has is connecting the East and the West.
Yeah. But hey, I will say this just also, I wasn't super jazzed about this one from the start. I wasn't really
Mm.
excited about this. I have learned some things, some interesting things. Um, I have enjoyed it, but I wasn't really enthusiastic about it at the beginning. And that I was kind of thinking about it. I probably thought more about my unenthusiasm for the first couple days because I don't know, maybe it's my own like my Eurocentrism showing, but I just
Mm.
almost see it as something different.
Mm.
You know? 'Cause like, you know, I actually just happen to have these next to me, but also because I was talking to her dad about them. But like the Tao, you know, and at the I Ching, and or I Ching, and I mean I enjoy reading the stuff for like the philosophical kind of insights that you get, but it's hard for the po it's hard for the poetry with the translations sometimes,
Mm.
to like judge it but in the same way or to get into it in the same way. I mean, there's like stuff you can take from it, that's sort of that's interesting, and I don't know, maybe that's something I need to kind of step outside of.
Mm.
But that's yeah.
I can kind of understand where you're coming from. And I would probably feel the same way if it were like a Chinese poet or that the translation we were getting something off of Google, maybe
Hmm,
Google
hmm.
Translate, or getting a translation from um I don't know, maybe just having somebody translate it. But the thing about Li Bai is it was translated so long ago and has almost been like studied and passed around in English for so
Yeah,
long that it almost has its own life in English.
yeah. No, I get that now. I get that now after getting into it.
Mm.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that, especially with Ezra Pound. Obviously, we've already talked about him. the influence of, like haiku and poets like Li Bai on him in the Beat generation that has subsequently influenced us since. I see that now. But like,
Mm,
just going into it, like I'm much more excited about like say like like with like Langston Hughes and learning about like a blues and jazz poet that like seems much more relevant
right,
than
right.
this felt going into it before I started to kind of dig, and learn more about it.
And it was interesting because as I was reading several of Levi's poems, it like I was struck at how I was picking up strands of the Tao. I was
Hmm.
picking up strands of the Tao, but it also kind of struck me as how almost we beat this word to death, but almost how modern some of it
Hmm.
sort of seemed, or how modern it
Yeah, like
was.
the themes and
Right, right.
yeah,
Just how
right, absolutely.
yeah, even the themes of I even was reading one of his longer pieces, a letter from a soldier in exile, and
Mm-hmm.
it just seemed, I don't know, it had echoes of post World War II. It had echoes of the Civil War in it.
Mm-hmm.
It just was, it was started. I mean, maybe there's something universal about the human condition. Maybe that's why we're here even doing
Right,
this
right.
right now.
Yeah,
So
yep,
I
yep,
don't
I
know,
think so.
but yeah. So Levi, writing in the 700s AD, so
Hmm.
1300 years ago. But I know we've said this several times, but surprisingly salient.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too. I don't know that we're in a time like this, necessarily, but um, who knows? We could in the future. And but sorry, give me 1 second here.
Um,
Okay. So sorry. One one thing that they were in the Tang Dynasty was a time of like religious like fervent, so there was like a lot of it was like a time where uh you know China became like a little bit more metropolitan and had like a lot of sort of different influences. Like like Manichaeism was around, which is a big one for like early, even quite Christianity and Western religions. Or that's no longer in style. It was big in Rome, around like first century AD, and like you had like Christianity, and you had Taoism and like Confucianism, and you just had like a lot of different sort of ideas at the time, and there's a lot of poetry is like a time of where it's kind of like a golden age of poetry, in the Tang
mm,
Dynasty, and Li Bai being, him and Du Fu, and, always, lesser known, but, Doofus, um, those guys, they were, like kind of like the best of like the golden age, where like a lot of people, just like, even just regular people, read and wrote poetry.
mm. And it's interesting how you talk about you know um the golden age, this how Levi, he's in this golden age, but Levi, he's also this sort of traveler. He's like traveling
Uh-huh.
around. He goes on these travels. He's writing these poems, imbibing the wine, sort of like a bit of a drunken traveler. And that motif sort of shows up around the blues era with some of these blues
Hmm.
men with Langston Hughes was urban in the cities, but he's sort of writing about maybe some of these rural guys who are traveling around on the trains, and also maybe getting drunk, or a little tea, and all the way to the
Yeah,
Beat generation. The Beats are
right,
also
right.
sort of
That was Kerouac. Yeah.
traveling eccentrics, traveling
Hmm.
drunks.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
and
His,
don't
his,
and
yep.
Levi's poetry is definitely pertinent to the Beats and
Hmm.
pertinent to
Hmm.
Kerouac as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Kerouac was in his novel Dharma Bums, he's just like carrying like port wine in his like I don't know, like some kind of like book bag or something like that. He's just like drinking port wine the whole time, jumping on trains, going from place to place, just like, I don't know, just mixing it up with different people.
And this, I mean, this tradition that you were trying to highlight, this is a tradition of like, it's almost like a shamanistic ecstasy. It's like,
Mm, mm,
we almost have these it's interesting how these archetypes sort of come in and out of society. We have almost like the shaman, but the shaman in society can mix with the medicine man. It can also mix with the poet, or maybe even different types of entertainers. But throughout society, we have these sort of traveling, almost shamanistic poets. Even Homer, the great Homer, was a bit of a traveling poet with a certain religious fervor placed upon him.
hmm 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 Yeah, I mean, I guess even you could say, you know, um, uh, Paul, the Apostle Paul,
Mm,
um, traveling around, sort of, with his story, more or less.
mm.
Um, Johnny Appleseed. I think we talked about him one episode.
I think
There's
we did.
yeah, yeah. There's that way with with many um like prophets, or even like saints, and people sort of sometimes they're poets, sometimes they're not. That sort of, like you're saying, shaman, why maybe even wise man. Like you think of like Odin traveling around as a
Mm,
one-eyed, kind of
yeah.
like old man. Um, you had the same thing with Gandalf was the Wanderer, the Grey Wanderer.
Mm. So yeah, this is a deep trope, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, we oftentimes don't think of the East. I feel that the East can often be overlooked sometimes. Especially when, I mean, not only in matters of poetry, but also in matters of sort of theme and archetype. But it's always interesting when the similar archetype arises in somewhere that seems so far away.
But it's also interesting, I think, because China, obviously this is like during the dynastic period. This is, you know, 1200 years ago. During a time of, it's kind of funny because we kind of, I think sometimes like in main pop culture, we kind of have like usually see like this life is just like constant progression. So
Mm,
it's kind of interesting to see like 1200 years ago they had this was during a time of like religious tolerance, great sort of religious tolerance, and um now it's like very much closed off, so it's hard to almost even imagine that place
mm,
being somewhere where there's like maybe like kind of like this is almost like a bohemian time,
mm,
more or less,
mm,
very very kind of free and open,
yeah. Oh, how the pendulum swings.
right? Yeah. So, I mean, hey, maybe we're swinging that way too.
Hey, maybe, but over the course of this podcast, we have almost seen the swing from sort of more romantic poetry to kind of a more uh sort of rigid historic, like, our more metered poetry. There's sort of a push and pull between the two, but also like a
Yeah.
certain romanticism and almost maybe a certain realism. you
Uh,
know
uh.
um
There are some things though, and I wanted to, get into this once we got into my poem though, about his poetry that we kind of lose in the translations as far as like structure. Um,
because
so
the way he would use characters, like each line would be like four characters or something like that.
right, yeah, yeah,
hmm which in a way we have words as opposed to characters, so
yeah, yeah.
it would be something to be able to read and perceive the,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
like, four punctuated bits of information, like boop boop
Uh-huh.
boop.
Uh-huh.
For the
Yeah,
people watching,
because yep.
if we maybe we should kind of get into for the people watching at home. A lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Levi, and I don't know, a lot of Levi's poetry, it would be like four characters by
Uh-huh.
four
Yep.
characters, so it
Yep.
would be a
Yep.
16 block of characters.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and obviously there's no way to sort of recreate this in
Right.
English.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So that's what, yeah, we kind of, yeah, we do lose that a bit, but we can, st that's why like we can still kind of like learn like from like the themes and like sort of the images, kind
hmm
of maybe get the gist of the sort of meaning, but we kind of lose some of
hmm
the poetry, sort of the artistic, uh,
right.
the craftsmanship of it, kind of in a way.
And we do lose it, but and it's almost like we would have never we have almost no bearing for this in our sort of syntax. You know what I mean, or in our sort of language period. So it would be interesting for it to for like to see four symbols and get like four chunks of information. It's almost be like
Yeah,
it
but
almost
they're
be
all interconnected too, because each one has several meanings. So that's
right,
something
right,
like, Julia read the original for mine to kind of, and I'm kind of, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but each one depending on the others, that's just how the
right.
language works anyways. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people know that, but that's kind of the art of it is like kind of being able to gain the meaning from it, or
Mm,
like get there's a skill in reading it,
mm, that's very interesting. I mean, do you want to go ahead and get into your poem?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, okay. Without further ado, we are doing from the. Okay.
Right. So the solitude of night, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read this here. So it was at a wine party. I lay in a drowse, knowing it not. The blown flowers fell and filled my lap. When I arose, still drunken, the birds had all gone to their nests, and there remained but few of my comrades. I went along the river, alone in the moonlight. So, so this is a poem, as we were saying, that would otherwise, we can see this is seven um, lines of sort of indiscriminate length that other that we basically extracted from like a four by four, of characters, four lines of four characters. And again, I have kind of an upper hand with, with my wife Julia, but the solitude of night apparently is the the four characters that make up the I think or it's the two characters that make up this uh title is like just means to like to express my emotion would
Mm,
be a more direct translation. So she was like the solitude night. That kind of, that's a little bit of, artistic license, I guess, on behalf of our translators, which,
mm,
I guess is fine.
okay.
Um, but she said the rest of it was pretty spot on as being, more or less a direct translation. Um, but, with this poem, it does kind of express more of a, sort of modern kind of sensibility. We're at a
Mm,
wine party. Um, we know we're like along the river. We know it's kind of like an all-night affair. Seems like everyone's got good and drunk at this party. That's what it seems like. It seems like, just about everyone's probably good and drunk at this party. And this almost kind of reminds me even of like maybe like a Tom Waits song,
mm,
Like I could see Tom Waits singing about this,
right.
You know, walking along the river at night, still
Right.
drunk from the wine, He might even be whistling, he might be twirling a stick,
Right.
I don't know. Um, maybe with his cap on, put his cap on back, out the door. Um, but I kind of like this, you kind of mentioned about the Tao too. So it was at a wine party. I lay in a drowse, knowing it not. Kind of reminds me of the Tao right there. Maybe like this,
Mm,
or some Manichaeism, this like, sort of duality there.
right,
Um, uh, it also reminds me of I'm reading As I Lay Dying from William Faulkner right now, and he has some passages in there, after Anne Bundren dies of, what is and is not and what is and was, and this kind of reminded me of that as well, but this laying there and knowing it not, laying in a drowse, kind of, it's a interesting idea as far as being in that drowse, not knowing you're in a drowse. It's like when you're half asleep, half awake,
right,
being in it. Do you know it?
right.
Once if you know it, if you're aware of it, can you be in it? So I don't know, he's completely in the moment, just in, the blown flowers fell and filled my lap. I mean, is he Rumpelstiltskin? He's, you know, laid there
You
for
know
so long in solitude, flowers are falling on him.
what kind of jumps out to me, and this has happened to me, and I think this has happened to many people. Like you end up getting too drunk at the pregame, you miss the real
Mm,
party.
mm. That
This
could be, yeah, yeah, I
and
could see this too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah.
how it seems to me.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
and then you like
Yeah,
pass
yeah.
out. I lay in a
Uh-huh.
drowse, knowing it not. Didn't even know you
Uh-huh.
fell asleep.
Right, right.
When
Yep.
I
Yep.
arose, still drunken, the birds had all gone to their nest, and there remained but few of my comrades. I see the birds going to their nest almost like the flowers in his lap. Like
Mm. Now
it's
see,
it's showing that time has passed. Like
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
Time has passed. Yeah, but I want to an alternate view of this, of the birds going to their nests. I see it as, all the birds have gone to their nests. They've all gone home. I'm thinking like love birds. I'm thinking all the lovers have left and gone to their nests. A
mm,
few of his comrades. Yeah, I agree with you. Like he's missed maybe a party, maybe the last bit of it, however much of the party he's missed. And there's like maybe a few single stragglers, guys that are all drunk at the end of their rope, just like him.
yeah, I can see that too. And I can see yeah, that's actually what I was gonna get to next about how the birds go into their nest, and like how I imagine there were many more people at the party before, but but remains
Hmm.
but few. Like they're
Yep.
almost like the birds gone to their nest. I didn't quite make the lovebird connection, but still, the birds gone to their nest, and the only people left are just few of his like how it is at the end of every party, just a
Right.
few scragglers hanging around.
Hmm. I've been there.
I've
I've
been
been
there
a
too.
straggler a few times.
But the kicker, the reason why I know Levi is a real one, this is how I know he's a real one, is I went along the river alone in the moonlight. I've drunkenly walked around at night after everybody's gone and
Hmm.
left, and
Yep.
you're
Yep.
just alone and drunk, and you're just walking
Hmm.
around,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And a
Yep.
lot of Levi's poetry is him alone and drunk walking around. Well, sometimes he sings and dances just as in the drunkenly in the moonlight as well. But tonight he's a bit alone in the moonlight. I imagine dejected from missing the party. But yeah, I enjoyed this
Yeah.
poem. It's
Yeah.
haiku esque. It's Tao esque. It's kind of like the stanzas of the Tao are similar to this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did Julia kind of show like where maybe the lines were broken up at? Maybe in twos and the
No.
last one by itself.
Mm-mm. No.
Mm.
No. No, and I didn't ask. I mean, perhaps that could be. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of what's it? You know the name of the poem? It starts with an R. It's a little bit longer than a haiku, not as formal.
Oh. I don't want to say because I'm gonna just sound like I just made up some Asian sound and stuff.
I feel like it's like Ryu or something like
I
that.
thought it was gonna. I was gonna say like Renshi.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna do the voice or anything.
So no, I don't even know what I was thinking. Tonka is what I'm actually thinking.
Oh, okay. Well, T is close to R. But hey, man,
You're right. Yeah, it is QRSTUV. So I was just a few letters off.
yeah, 2 letters away. Don't be so
Yeah,
hard on yourself, man.
yeah, you're right, dude. It's Tonka. I think I might have also been thinking of Senru.
I'm not sure.
See, this is the that's the extent of my Japanese.
But Solitude of the Night, man, pretty good poem.
Yeah, yeah, this is a fun one. Like I said, kind of still modern. So has kind of this modern sentiment, and I feel like it's like an old crooner piano song. You've got a
Mm,
cigarette and a beer on the piano, and he's singing about this one.
for sure, for sure. But yeah, hey,
There we go, Solitude of the Night,
and
or I express my
you
feelings.
wanna read it again? Just
I
say it.
can't. I don't think we did that last week. We've been
Oh yeah,
inconsistent on that one. We
yeah. We
can
had
we can
a
do it again. Since we've thought about it, I thought about it too.
post
So
analysis.
it was at a wine party. I lay in a drowse, knowing it not. The blown flowers fell and filled my lap. When I arose, still drunken, the birds had all gone to their nests, and there remained but few of my comrades. I went along the river, alone in the moonlight.
The Solitude of Night.
I feel like I could even read that better. I wonder how
You want to take
I
another
kind of read
crack
that
at it?
one. No, no, not right now. Not
Well,
right now, not live. I don't want the folks to see me sweat.
all right, I understand that. Well, hey, if your poem was kind of like, like him waking up from a party and kind of being alone and dejected, my poem's a little bit like him waking up, maybe to start the day, but getting a little day drunk, you know.
Mhm.
But so lead by get a little day drunk. Or not to spoil it, I'm gonna just go. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go ahead and. But my poem is called "Waking from Drunkenness on a Spring Day." Waking from drunkenness on a spring day. All right. Life in the world is but a big dream. I will not spoil it by any labor or care. So saying, I was drunk all the day, lying helpless at the porch in front of my door. When I woke up, I blinked at the garden lawn. A lonely bird was singing amid the flowers. I asked myself, had the day been wet or fine? The spring wind was telling the mango bird. Moved by its song, I soon began to sigh. And as wine was there, I filled my own cup. Wildly singing, I waited for the moon to rise. When my song was over, all my senses had gone. All right.
Ah.
You know, I actually really like this poem. There's been plenty of times where I've been, getting kind of, wake up. You might wake up kind of late, and you just realize that it might be your day off, or you might not have anything to do that day, and you go, you know what, whatever. I'm not even gonna worry about anything today. I'm just gonna have fun. Life in the world is but a big dream. I will not spoil it by any labor or care. I love how that the first two lines of this poem are almost like a thesis statement. He quotes
Yeah.
himself. And then after that, he goes, so saying, I was drunk all the day, lying helpless at the porch in front of my door. Hey,
Yeah.
I've laid in bed all day from a variety of substances myself. And I love how he's always slowly wake. I'll lead by. I love how he's always waking up. I imagine him knocking the crust out of his eyes, like,
Yeah.
what's
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
he's always bird. He's always paying attention. The birds are like Levi's clocks. The birds tell him how long he's been passed out.
Hmm. Hmm.
A lonely bird was singing amid the flowers. I asked myself, had the day been wet or fine? I imagine that means had it rained or not. That's what I imagine that to mean. The spring wind was telling the mango bird. Moved by its song, I soon began to sigh. Wow, the lovely song of the bird after a nice drunk nap. Hey, and as wine was there, I love how he said wine was just there. He didn't go get it. Hey, the wine was
Right.
there. I filled
Right.
my own cup. And then
Yeah.
hey, nothing to do but wait for the moon to rise. I love that little phrase. If people hit me up, ask me what I'm doing, I'm gonna say, hey man, just waiting for the moon to rise.
Right. Right. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
my song was over, all my senses had gone. So in Justin's poem, this his unknowing, him being passed out from the wine, his this sort of place of unknowing, he missed the party, so he seemed a bit dejected. But in this instance, all of his senses are gone, almost out of ecstasy. He's wildly singing, waiting for the moon to rise, and next thing you know, he was gone off into ecstasy. Sounds like a
Yeah.
sounds like a day at sounds like my college years. Sleep all
Sounds like
day,
some of my days off.
sleep all day, and give the night up to the moon.
Right. Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me too of a lyric from Simon Garfunkel, Only Living Boy in New York. I've got nothing to do today but smile. Um, Sometimes I think of that too. And this poem, I wonder though at the beginning who he is quoting. Is he quoting himself? Is that maybe like a old saying? I don't know. But
Sure.
I'm curious if it's like maybe like an old maxim or like some kind of like maybe a proverb or something like that.
Mm.
Like, hey, there's this. Like, so, with that in mind, I just spent the day drunk. What else is there to do?
You
I'm
could.
not gonna spoil the day by labor or care.
You could be right. I assumed he was talking to himself, but
It could be, could be,
you could be right. It could be a like a bit of a colloquialism. I'm
yeah,
not
like a
sure.
little epigraph,
Right.
to kind of start to kind of stay the poem, like, hey, this is how I interpret this. Uh,
Right.
but I do like him, kind of just like lying, sort of helpless. I mean, you think of like someone who's like at ease. This guy's lying helpless on the porch at the front of
Right.
his door. Not many places, he's not in America.
No, for sure
Not
not.
today. Yeah. I would not even in some places in the country I wouldn't be lying on my front porch
Right.
sleeping. Let alone in urban areas. But you know, um, this is someone who's sort of at ease in comfort. But I do like him kind of, I blinked the garden lawn, you know,
Mm,
just like those blinking eye, like, waking up, you just have like these flashes of like the garden lawn in front of you.
right.
Uh,
I
you know.
like I like Levi's style, just passing out wherever, waking up.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
he does remind me of like, he's a little bit of a rock star.
Right.
Um,
A little Kerouac,
uh-huh,
a little
uh-huh.
Hunter S. Thompson in there.
Right, yeah. Or even, maybe he's like Bradley Noel from Sublime or something.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Singing colloquial songs or little riffing on little tunes.
Moved by its song, I soon began to sigh. Yeah. And as wine was there, yeah, might as well help myself.
I filled my own cup.
Yeah.
I filled my own cup.
Hey, the wine was just there. I saw the wine was there. My cup was empty. Birds were singing.
I love how it's almost like the birds inspired him to sing. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he
wildly.
joined in the scene.
He slept all day and then just waited till the
He's
moon
kind of an
rise.
animal.
He kind of
He's kind of
is.
like an animal.
And birds are a great clock because when I wake up in the morning and I don't hear birds chirping, I know I'm late to work.
And what did he do? Did he spend the night up writing this?
I think he wrote this the next day. The next
Maybe he
day.
wrote this the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. Something tells me that night all my senses had gone. He blacked
Yeah,
out.
perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Or
he
either he
woke up drunk, just
the hair of the dog, as they say.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I just love how the wine was just there. And as wine was there, I filled my own cup. Hey.
Hey, this is a lesson I learned once when I was in college. It was a summer between college. My friend and I decided to get drunk during the day. It wasn't something I did often. I felt passed out, woke up 6 o'clock in the evening, roaring headache.
What were y'all drinking? Cheap Tito's?
We each had a Bud Light, a 40 ounce of Bud Light.
Oh, okay.
So did the 40 ounce of Bud Light, passed out, woke up, roaring headache, went and met up with some buddies, had a beer, like begrudgingly, didn't think it was gonna. I was like, no, no, no. Had the beer, and I was like, damn, I feel great.
Mm.
I
Hair of the
can imagine
dog.
how he felt. He probably didn't. He might not. He didn't. He doesn't talk about having any kind of a headache here, but
No.
wine will have you feeling different than beer.
Yeah, that's true.
Who knows
And
what kind of wine he was drinking too? Maybe not. Maybe rice wine. Maybe not wine from grapes. I don't know.
I have no idea. That would be interesting to research.
Yeah.
But I also like the idea of life as that seems like kind of an Eastern idea. Life is a dream. Life in the
Well, I mean,
is but a
merrily, merrily,
dream.
merrily, merrily.
Yeah.
Life is but a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. We gotta hide that, you know. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream.
Yeah, that is one. But there's a lot of life is like somebody dreaming or the dream of a god or something like that, as
Yeah.
opposed to reality being something God is creating. Reality is something that God is dreaming.
Yeah, yes, you have that, the idea with, Plato, as well, with sort of, we're kind of in a realm of illusions. There's that higher realm of like true ideas that we just kind of see shades of, you know.
Mm. Well, that's interesting.
But I
The
mean, it's not. Yeah, it is kind of it's an idea that kind of, been around for a long time.
Yeah,
Some people say it's a simulation.
right. Which I guess a dream is a type of simulation. But,
Yeah, I mean, either way, we're saying, hey, this is not real reality. This is sort of a
right.
dream, a simulation, a version, a shade.
A shadow.
Uh-huh. We're in the shadow realm,
But yeah, I
the
mean
world of
this
illusions.
this is all I had on this one. I mean, it's a nice little it's a nice little poem. It's almost like a sonnet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 lines. Not quite, but
Was
some.
this one that was 4 by 4 with the characters? Did you happen to see
No,
the original?
no. This
Oh,
one
okay,
this one
okay,
wasn't. This one wasn't.
okay.
This one I think it had a varying length. It had varying length, and
Interesting.
the one on Wikipedia that actually had it juxtaposed with the Chinese characters is actually a bit different. And I mean,
Mm,
you
mm.
want to take a look at that one? I mean, what do we got to
Sure.
lose? What do we have to lose?
Stay with us,
Um,
folks.
Stay with us, folks, please.
What do we have to lose? The audience.
Yeah, do not touch that dial. Um, Man, I'm trying to
Levi, we haven't mentioned, yeah, he's also known as Li Po.
maybe go over some of his other names. I'm trying to find where the poetry was. Okay, here we
I
go.
don't know all his names, dude. I just know Levi, Li Po. I do know he's got a handful of them. Who's this
Okay.
guy? MF Doom?
All right, I'm gonna share my screen, and actually, it looks like it was
The same? Or just,
no, like you see, it actually looks like 5 characters by 4,
okay,
five
okay.
characters by 4. Except this one, we have this little dash right here. Then we have 5 characters. We have
Yeah,
three stanzas of 5 characters,
yeah,
4 lines with 5 characters. Three
yeah,
stand.
okay.
And if you see this one, this is a different translation. It's a bit different. You know,
Yeah.
we are lodged in this world as in a great dream. Then why cause our lives so much stress? This is my reason to spend the day drunk and collapse sprawled against the front pillar. When I wake, I peer out in the yard, where a bird is singing among the flowers. Now tell me, what season is this? The spring breeze speaks with orioles warbling. I am so touched that I almost sigh. I turn to the wine, pour myself more, then sing wildly, waiting for the moon. When the tune is done, I no longer care.
Mhm. I
Hmm.
do, there are some things I do like about the one that you chose.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to see these, sort of side by side, more or less, or read them one after another. Um, this one's a little bit more straightforward. This is the reason to spend. This is my reason to spend the day drunk.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
do like how but I like how the Wikipedia blocked it out to mimic the blocks of the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
famous
yeah.
characters. So now
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
we can kind of
Yeah.
see
I mean,
how
he's very much like the sort of the drunken Buddha.
yeah, yeah,
And I mean, hey, it's not what goes into your mouth, but what comes out that makes you unclean. So,
the drunken Taoist.
right, yeah.
And I mean, it's a let me it's
What is his religion? Is he a Taoist though, for sure?
um
Or
like it was kind of during that time where it was like a lot of sort of like religious sort
yeah,
of
there were
tradi-
different religious
it was
ferment.
like it's
Yeah.
kind of like almost like a he almost was like a
Hmm.
Chinese folk religion kind of thing. But it's interesting, the spring breeze speaks with orioles warbling. He the spring and the one that I read, the spring wind was telling he called it a mango bird instead of an
Uh-huh.
oriole.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
And he said, I asked myself, had the day been wet or fine? The
Right.
one
He
I
said that. Yeah.
But in
Yep.
this one he says, what season is this?
Right, right.
So but it is
Yeah.
but when the tune is done, I no longer care.
Right, right.
I didn't like that one as much as when my song was over, all my senses had gone.
Yeah. I do like the phrasing too of, and since there was wine, or since the wine was there, I filled my cup, you know.
Right, right.
I turned to the wine, pour myself more. It's like a little bit more straightforward, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The other one kind of captures a little bit more of the feeling of it, you know?
Right. And as wine was there, I filled my own cup.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So hey.
Mm. Yeah,
So
nice.
interesting. So yeah, I mean, this is a poet. Like this is a poet. Not only can you read his poetry, you can read many iterations of that poetry. So
Well, we discovered that too with like the Tao. A lot of these, especially
yeah,
Like
because your
Chinese,
copy
yeah,
is different than mine.
yeah, yeah,
It's subtle. It has subtle differences.
yeah, yeah. So
There's
like
a
a lot of the, yeah,
Oh, I was just gonna say there's several numbers of the Dow that I like better from your copy.
yeah, yeah, I am, yeah. The I kind of forgot about that, but that you did actually get, a copy that we like compared to. I remember even like looking at different ones online, like trying to find ones and be like, oh, none of these are like exactly like the
Yeah,
one I'm seeing in my book.
yeah,
Um, it's so because I think the nature of the language, it and also like my wife Julia was telling me that the language that he was using too is it's much more like it's like Shakespeare, where it's
mm,
kind of even it's not necessarily, how I like to have like the traditional Chinese and the simplified. It's not that difference. It's more the difference in like just like the language and the way that he speaks and writes is just not in a way that people do anymore, It's
mm,
just, it's something that you have to like, for modern readers, like they have to learn, So, um, yeah, it's kind of like Shakespeare for us,
right,
Like,
right.
Shakespeare is, a lot of people, they find it difficult,
It's obviously
love to
English,
hate.
but
Right, right. But it sounds, I don't want to say it sounds nothing, but if you go and watch a Shakespeare play, like for myself, not being, a highly educated person, I have to like pay attention,
right.
you
But the
know?
thing is, Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare sounds easier than it reads. You know,
Yeah, yeah, sure, for sure.
I wonder if
But the thing is, you get so much more from it. You can like things can kind of pass by. You might not necessarily totally hear what they're saying or
you're saying
quite
you
understand it,
get
but
more
all the
from reading it.
no, no, when you're watching it
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
you have all the other, you
Hmm.
have them acting out, you have the inflection, just even the physical movements, everything, So
I just wonder is it the same with Lee Bai? Like if listening
probably,
to it
yeah, yeah.
is
Oh,
listening
I
to
don't know. Yeah, that part, yeah, maybe.
is listening to it much easier than as opposed to reading it.
Perhaps, maybe. Yeah, it's a good
Mm.
question.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
hey, I,
pull her
I
in and ask.
I enjoyed I enjoyed Levi. Maybe we'll get some more info from Julia and reconvene if we do a Du Fu. Maybe we'll do his
Yeah,
counterpart because they call
right,
them the
right.
two. They're named like the two immortal poets or something like.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll get some more info.
They had they have some, they have like four. There's like the four, like basically like great like pieces of literature too. That are like
Mm.
sort of like novels or like poet like sort of uh poetic stories. I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to kind of read more into, but um
And then Levi was also part of the three. It was like the three immortal people, like Levi with poetry, somebody else with the sword, and somebody else with calligraphy.
mm,
So like I don't know, like
I didn't read about that part. That's interesting.
yeah,
But I mean, there's so many, you know, American and European poets. I mean, we don't have to do Chinese stuff, dude. No,
we don't have to.
I'm just messing.
Hey, if you don't
Uh,
want to, we don't have to. But I thought
no,
that
no, it'd
I
be interesting to do Dufu. I like doing like the greats. I was like kind of getting in it. It's something. I mean, and hey, why not? So sort of our with doing Ezra Pound like kind of led us here. So on one hand be like, oh, let's do like we could do like some ancient Roman or Latin poets.
could do Homer, but that's the
Could do
thing.
Homer.
I'm just kidding.
But there's like Greek like poets like I'm blanking on the name. I want to say like
oh,
I think Sophocles or there's a few we'd have to look
well,
at
no, no. Sophocles was a playwright. probably a
Okay,
poet
okay,
too.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
the Greek I'm trying to think. Was it like Examander, something like that?
I'm not sure.
Exander. I think he was a poet. Exander, something like that.
I once got this like book from the library. It was like 50. They did like a series of them, so like it was like a book of 50 poems. Like you have like 50 romantic poems, or 50 modernist. I got one that was like 50 like classical poems. It was like Greek and um,
Hmm.
Roman poets, um,
Well,
and a lot
Virgil
like
was Roman, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of reading like Lee By, where you're like, oh wow, this is like incredibly,
Mm.
like this is like this is a regular person, so it could be interesting to do something like that too.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I only learned about Ezra Pound. I saw the name a lot, but it wasn't
Hmm.
until we did the William Carlos Williams that I kind of really looked into Ezra Pound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is what drew us to Ezra Pound. That's right.
And over the course of, and William Carlos Williams, I found out about him through the Beats. The Beats talking about what, or
Mm,
Jack
mm,
Kerouac specifically
mm. Mm.
mentioning William Carlos Williams. How I found out about him led me to, and from him to Ezra Pound, and from Ezra Pound to Lee By. So this has been just a educational, merry-go-round.
Right, right. Well, and we have a couple different strands that we followed. We also had, through Louise Glick and, Max Ritvo, and I feel like there was something else with Louise Glick, wasn't there? Was there another poet?
Um,
I thought we were kind of uncovering some kind of other little strand.
no, no, it was Louise Glick, and then she taught Max Ritvo.
Right, right. I thought there was a third piece to that, but
Mm,
there's little, things that we're kind of touching on.
yeah,
It's kind of fun to like uncover as we go along here. And next week, what we have Ada Limon, right? Next week, I believe.
Ada Limon. Yeah, Ada Limon. Yep, we do have Ada Limon next week. For some reason, I thought it was Hilda Doolittle, but we don't. I don't know if we have her on the.
That would be an interesting one to do. I mean, when we have to put her on the docket for, when we come back, because, she was tied right there with Ezra Pound and William Carlos Williams, so
Yeah,
that'd kind of be completing that.
HD.
We have a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, HD. Yeah, so that'd be that, and she kind of we talked about it with William Carlos Williams, or maybe it was Ezra Pound. She took that Imagist movement or Imagist movement like all the way,
Hmm.
and like beyond Ezra Pound, and then also herself like began to hate it or like
Yeah,
turned on
yeah.
it or something like that. So it's kind of a
Right.
something about the Imagist, just kind of
Get in
you
it,
know.
then they get away from it.
Right, yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, with Ada Limon, I don't know, we'll learn some things about her, current U.S. Poet Laureate. So
Yeah, yeah.
we're
So
getting we're coming roaring back to the present after Lee By.
yeah, we did go contemporary, 1,300 years in the past. Now we're gonna go back contemporary. So
Right, yeah, maybe we'll learn something even in that.
yeah.
You got any final words on Lee By?
No, great poet. Check him out.
Yeah. Yeah, the drunken poet. Maybe
Yeah.
hey, if you want to read some Lee By, maybe get a case of wine. You probably want a case, not just
Right.
a bottle. Get a
Right.
case. Yeah, maybe take the weekend.
Yeah.
Live like Lee By,
Right. But
Yeah.
yeah. So hey, this has
This
been
is
First Take. I'm James.
Justin
We're gonna go ahead and get out of here.
reporting for duty, actually leaving.
Well, hey, take care, guys, and we'll see you guys later.